A great philosopher once said, UI, see you later. Let's get to some Braves talk. Arch Madness rolls on as the Braves get ready to face Drake for the third time this year for Valley Supremacy. Welcome to Braves Talk, everybody. This is a sick Iceman, Matt Freites, and across from me, as always, the pals, Coach and OG. What's up, guys?
Iceman, OG, Braves Nation, happy semifinal Saturday at Arch Madness. I suspect that there are probably some Braves fans in St. Louis who are in recovery mode right now after a late night at the Enterprise Center, and I'm sure celebrating afterwards at the various locations around St. Louis. And they are trying to get themselves right for the games today. And those of you who are at home, probably trying to knock out any of your household duties so that you can enjoy the two games that are on tap later this afternoon. So excited to be here and looking forward to today's ball games. Dad, what about you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's hey, the top 4 seeds, semifinals, no excuses. No excuse for being tired. Outside of the upper bracket, I think both teams struggle. Lower bracket, for both the teams playing today, they kind of breeze through. So it's gonna be fun.
I wouldn't say breeze through, except in the second half of this game, because I did watch the first half and then I passed out because the game started 9:30 Eastern time, so it was a little bit earlier for you guys. But Brad and I were texting back and forth about this game, and I was like, I don't want them hanging around. But we also agreed, Brad, that we didn't think that UIC was going to have the legs in the second half, and I think that proved 100% correct.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the comments that Coach made at the half on the broadcast were spot on. That we had guys that were playing outside themselves a little bit. I think we were pressing at times, and then it was a weird combination. I think that in moments we were sort of pressing, trying to make some things happen, and other times I thought we were too passive and didn't take open shots when we had them. And it sounds like the message at halftime was pretty simple. Just it's basketball. Go out there and have fun and play the game. And that's what we saw in the second half. And I wasn't as worried as you guys were. I figured there would be, UIC would come out guns a-blazing, and they did. And I thought that the Braves would have to, blow the cobwebs off a little bit. And I think that's sort of what transpired. And then, we took the game over in the second half and really left no doubt. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Just, playing with confidence, shooting the ball with confidence, to what Coach Wardle said at halftime. And they came out and did that. One person in particular, I think, needs to do some work on that is Almar needs to release quick and don't hesitate. You hesitate, you're lost. So, he could have either got some shots off, some threes, or even fouled in the process. And those are all pluses, but he pulled down and tried to drive and made a few turnovers here and there. So came up scoreless. So that's all we need is confidence. Our guys need to play with confidence.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Brad, because the ESPN Plus crew was talking a couple of times in the first half about how they were making it too complicated. A few too many passes when you have a wide open shot or the ability to make something happen. And I thought that was the story of the first half. But I did tell you that I thought that Mal really held the team together in the first half. And if you look at his stat sheet from the first half to the second half, didn't really do a whole lot in the second half. But I kind of thought he kept the team together and was able to make sure that they were able to get to that second half and be able to play a little bit looser. And a lot of the other guys were able to come through. Like Duke Dean I think he was scoreless at halftime. And so, that's not going to happen 2 halves in a row. Obviously, Connor Hickman had a great second half coming up with 20 points. But I thought that the second half was more indicative of the ceiling of the team. And hopefully they can play 2 halves of that today against Drake. But I agree with both of you. And, at the end of the day, it's a solid win, and that's all you can ask for.
You're absolutely correct. And I mean, we could have done without the 5 turnovers from Mal in the first half. Obviously, Hick had 4, so 9 between, 2 of our big 4. But fortunately, Mal does so many other things well that you can, not that, obviously it's easy to forgive this kind of stuff in a win, but you can take the good with the bad sometimes if there's a category that he struggles in because all the other things he does well. And yep, we got Kevin there. Yeah, he is our section mate at Carver Arena. And he's absolutely right. Yeah, Arch Madness record for second half shooting percentage for UIC with 15%. Great defensive effort. Yep, I agree by Mal. Rivera was a non-factor, and they held UIC to 4 field goals in the second half, which was incredibly impressive. And I don't even think that they made their first field goal till beyond the 10-minute mark, or under the 10-minute mark in the second half.
Yeah, and hey, kudos to Kevin again. And I want to give him a shout out too. He gave me a stat yesterday that we need to look forward down the road as a key, and it actually increased the game. And that is a Christian Davis when he scores 8 or more points. We are now 15-2 overall, 9-1 in conference play when he scores 8 or more. So thanks, Kevin, for that information. And it's key to look forward to. Christian's our man.
Yeah, we got 24 points from the bench, which was key. I think the times that we've been on here after a game hasn't gone our way, we talk about the lack of production from the bench. So 24 points there. I thought that, Davis, Birch, and Linky all made big time contributions off the bench. And those are things that you're going to have today to get it done against Drake, and then hopefully into tomorrow. And of course, we would have liked to have had that consistently throughout the year, but if there's a time to have it, it's right now, and you got to feel really good about it.
Yeah, a couple things that I took away too was turnovers. Got to keep those down. Not going to be able to survive with winning the turnover disparity in the wrong way against Drake today. And of course, the free throw line, again, a huge disparity, 25-14. But the Braves went 6 of 14 from the line, and that was something Matt talked about last week about how if they make free throws, they're going to put themselves in a good position. And I think that could be something that could be worth watching today, especially against a team that they match up a lot more evenly with. And so great win, great win against UIC. And now we're looking forward to Drake. But before we get to that, guys, let's take a look at the rest of the bracket. So I just want to say this out loud. The first round to me was really bad. It almost seems like any of the teams could really shoot. The basket was almost like a couple of feet higher for all of these other teams. And I felt bad thinking, God, this is not what I wanted to see. But yesterday I thought was a little bit better. Missouri State gave Indiana State everything they could handle. The trees move on. UNI edges Belmont, and Belmont was a team, Rick, that you thought could make a little bit of noise. But again, better coached team or a well-coached team, Ben Jacobson's UNI club, they make it through. So you're going to have Indiana State against UNI, which should be intriguing. And Drake just cruises past Evansville, and obviously Bradley cruises by. So that leaves us with, as you said, chalk for the semifinals 1 through 4. And so we have Drake coming in, and this is the third game now. And last year, losing to them in the final, losing to them twice this year. I hope that that's motivation enough.
Yeah, and obviously we beat the tough to beat 3 times thing to death last week, so we don't have to go there, but we've done a lot of things. We did a lot of things in the 2 matchups against Drake this year that kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. And we talk about having to play a perfect game, or we're gonna have to play close to one for sure. And we can't beat ourselves. We have to eliminate unforced errors, of course. And you have to give credit to Drake, though, also in some of those situations, because people get frustrated when they see their team play poorly against another good team, and it's like, well, that's because the other team's pretty damn good too, and they're doing things that are that are disrupting the flow, and that's a great point there too, again by Kevin, that their bench outscored ours in both games. Yeah, Almar and Christian combined for 7 points in two games against Drake. So yeah, we do have to take care of the ball. I agree completely. And we have to eliminate the big runs by Drake, and we can't get stuck on a number for too long. We just got to keep things moving. And I feel good about it, honestly. I mean, and I'll let Dad kind of get in here and talk about his analysis, but I think there's some other things that'll play a factor.
Yeah. Like I said, last Sunday, you looked at the stats, the shooting, and you just swore Bradley won by 10, with the field goal percentages. Then you move over to the fouls, the attempts, and the makes, and the turnovers, and that was a huge difference in that game. And the motivation of being hey, moving on to the championship game, if we can pull off the win, being Drake, the second place team, knowing you've played them pretty good both times you've played them this year. The times you've lost to them both times was under 10 points each. That's within striking distance. You keep the turnovers down, the live turnovers. Like yesterday, they had what was it? Steals. They had 12 steals on us. Them are live turnovers, and we had 17 total. You take even half of those steals away, and we can't have that today. We can't have the large turnovers. Let's stop fouling. Let's play good, in your face defense without contact. If that's possible, still be physical. But yeah, we need to come at them and be confident, and that, hey, we're the dogs chasing them now, and we're going to get them. They got the big old zero on their back.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see if we do anything different defensively, because we switch on defense, and I told Dad last night. I go, I've kind of made the mistake through these shows talking about Mal locking down the other team's best player, and yes, he does spend a fair amount of time guarding the other team's best player more often than not. But we switch, and so it's more of a team defense thing, and I think that, going into this game, as fans, we're like, all right, Mal's got to lock down DeVries, like plain and simple. That's what has to happen. But that doesn't necessarily fit in with how we play defense. So I'm curious to see if there are any adjustments that are made there to try to keep Mal on Tucker. And then, yeah, between Hannah and Almar, they're going to have to find a way to just keep Brody in check down low and not foul him, right? Keep him off the free throw line and just play smart physical defense. And we'll see what happens, and let's not forget, at the end of the day, like, we really need Hickman and Dean to show up. Those guys got to show up and play like, the all league guys that they are.
Yeah, I love Hickman. Last week he wasn't there. Basically, he didn't show up. At least in the stats, we need him. We need him today. We're gonna need him today, and we're gonna need him tomorrow. Let's be positive about this. We're gonna need him tomorrow.
And I think you're also going to need the kind of quality bench minutes that we got in this game. I mean, these are guys we haven't talked about a whole lot in Birch and Christian Davis. And I think that if we're going to get the kind of solid minutes that we got there, I mean, Linky didn't have as many minutes. And obviously, if you look at the stat sheet, it's not as eye popping. I did appreciate his amazing alley oop there, which was clunky but effective. And it is what it is. But we're going to need that. I mean, Matt talked about it last week, 1 through 8. And these are guys, again, outside of Linky recently, Brad, we haven't really talked about these guys. I mean, Damarian Birch getting, I think, 23 minutes, and Christian Davis or something like that, where they're getting real playing time. And we're going to need that because we're going to need that depth to shine through. And if some guys get in foul trouble or somebody struggles, we're going to need guys like that to keep this thing together. And I'm banking on the fact that first half against UIC was sluggish. It was cobwebs. And they really turned it on. And I think that Coach Wardle's words, I think that everything that happened at halftime is going to translate to this game. And I think that motivational factor is intangible, but I think it's real.
No, I agree completely. And we saw the things last night. What we saw last night was what we need to win this game, minus the turnovers, obviously, and maybe the slower start on offense. But you mentioned quality minutes from the bench and great shooting from our guards, a great team defense. That's the recipe, man. That's what we've been asking for. And so you have to sit there and have confidence that the team's going to be able to carry that over into today and tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. Obviously, they're a great basketball team. They're well coached. They've got the 2-time player of the year, all those things. We know that stuff, but you only got to beat them once, right? I mean, it's not like we only got to beat them one time and by 1 point. That's all we need. And this team is perfectly capable of doing that. And, and Kevin mentioned again, kind of avoiding those situations where we kill ourselves down 16-6 in the first 5 minutes when they came to Peoria. And then obviously the 17-2 run to end the first half when we went to their place. And if we can eliminate that and we don't put ourselves in a hole that we have to, climb out of, you have to feel good about our chances. And also, you talked about the revenge thing. I think there are a few coaches out there who I think do a better job of finding a way to put a chip on a player's shoulder or on a team's shoulders than Brian Wardle. I feel like he's masterful at, this underdog role and finding a way to motivate his team to come out and play well. And if you watched any comments from the press conference after last night's game, Connor Hickman mentioned that, it didn't feel good that game. The game last year where they lost the championship against Drake did not feel good. That feeling has resonated with him for a year. And, they've been waiting for this opportunity. And so I'm excited to see how they answer.
Yeah, and from all accounts on X, it looked like Bradley fans traveled really well. Hopefully, they can have a slight edge again in that to keep things moving. So if Bradley goes on a run, the crowd starts to get into it, and maybe we can almost fake a home court advantage there in St. Louis. And that was one thing I really took away, as you could tell. It was loud on TV, quite honestly.
Yeah, Bradley fans always travel well to Arch Madness, especially when the team is performing well. And I think you're going to see even more fans there today. A bunch of stuff on X of people heading that way, and it's exciting, man, all around. And I can't wait. And I wish we could make it down the night. It's just not going to happen. But the Braves take care of business. I anticipate being on the road to taking the championship game tomorrow.
Rick, how did you feel about the officiating in this game?
Oh, I got positive and negative things to say about officiating for every game. Not bad. I mean, I think, well, there's the foul on the 3-point shooter on Duke Dean. I mean, the smallest guy on the floor, and they did show the replay, and man, it was like, okay, he got his hand, but man, so slight, and yeah, I don't know. I'm one of these, if it's minimal contact, you don't call that stuff. But I think flopping needs to also be called. You can call 2 double fouls if you want as officials. It's in the rule books. But you get a shooter like that gets barely swiped on the hand. You can go ahead and call the foul on the defender, and a guy makes a dramatic flop. You need to call that too. So I mean, that's all part of the rules. But
And Brad,
I'm sure somebody out there will disagree with me on that and the technicality of it. But hey, I don't care. I just, come on. If whistle blows, just you don't need to fall down and cry like a baby.
They've been watching LeBron too long. What can I say? But Brad, you did say up until a point, you're like, I feel like the officiating has been consistent and fair. And then 2 fouls in a row, you're like, never mind. I take that back.
Yeah, and I had a feeling, like, as soon as I said that it was gonna change because, through the first, 10 minutes or so, maybe longer, I don't know. I was like, I feel like the officials, I hadn't noticed them, and that's a good thing when you don't notice officials. And I mean, and there were fouls being called, but they weren't. It didn't seem apparent that the officials were trying to make their presence known, as you see sometimes. And so I felt pretty good about that. And then not too long after, everything changed a little bit. And we joke all the time at the games and here at home, whenever there's a discrepancy in the fouls, imagine, you just know it's coming. If they've got 6 or 7 fouls and Bradley's got 1 or 2, that by halftime it's going to be pretty much even or real close. And so it is what it is. We've dealt with it all year, and we just have to take it as part of the game, unfortunately. And yes, Bowen Bourne, Valley President Bowen Bourne, and the embellishment department and flopping, absolutely. But you got something, Dad? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a call that it didn't get called this way, but on further review, it very well could have. There could have been an intentional foul called on the guy Hannah blocked the shot and ran down. Because I mean, if you're going up to try and block a shot, you got to at least go for the ball. This wasn't even close to the ball. He grabbed whacked his left hand, and the ball wasn't even in his left hand. And it's called a typical 2 shot, but that could have been, yeah.
And how about UIC pressing, like in the last 2 minutes of the game, down 30 points, pressing, and then the dunk when they didn't have to take a shot, and the guy goes down and dunks it. It's just, whatever. It's irrelevant, but I find it kind of funny. And then Luke Yaklich he's a joke, man. Like, the guy's he's halfway on the floor, like when we're playing offense in front of his bench, and just constantly throwing a fit, man. And it's tough to watch sometimes. And whatever, you see it from all coaches, so I mean, obviously, I'm just looking at this as from the Bradley fan perspective during last night's game, but he just is so whiny. And but again, part of the game, we see it all the time, and we're moving on from UIC and looking forward to the Bulldogs.
So I want to ask you guys something, and it's not related to the Braves, although it is kind of related. So Southern Illinois mutually parts ways with their coach, and that means he got fired. And I've seen a lot of takes on this, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on it because obviously it affects the future of Bradley basketball. And from all accounts, it seemed like fairly successful statistical record, but not a lot of big wins. But a lot of people that seemed to be close to the program felt like it was a shock, and also that he was doing things the right way. A guy who played for the program. And Brad, I told you yesterday, he was on the last SIU team to make the NCAA tournament, and their last victory was against my Virginia Tech Hokies. So I just wanted to see if you guys had any thoughts on that, even though it's not related to Bradley specifically.
It caught me off guard a little bit. I think that maybe if things kept going the way that they seem to be tracking for them, maybe things were going to go in that direction. But also, I think what hasn't helped them is the fact that the Mask and Jones both left and are having success elsewhere at a high level. And I'm sure that didn't do him any good. But I find it funny because like those guys all tweeted that they support him, and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but you support him so much that you left him. I mean, and I get that's the world, NIL and everything else. We don't got to go down that road, but um, I did see something on X from someone who seemed to be familiar with the situation that said that it was kind of an internal hatchet job by one small time booster, or excuse me, one staff member, one administrator, and a handful of small time boosters. Like, kind of went. It sounds like the whole thing caught the athletic department off guard, like they didn't even know it was coming, type of thing. And just very weird. I mean, the sentiment that you kind of see from most SIU fans is all positive towards Brian Mullins, and it's unfortunate when anybody gets fired and loses their job. I mean, but in the coaching world, it's part of the business, and two, at the same time, I guess it just depends on your standard. Valpo would take what SIU has had during Brian Mullins' tenure, and a lot of other places would too. But I guess you could say that they're establishing the standard there. That what's taken place in his time there is not good enough to be retained. Let's see what move where they go next. I don't know. I haven't researched much. If there's someone out there that's a favorite to take the job, but I'm sure my dad has a few thoughts.
I don't know.
Yes, not.
Administration. Now I also understand that the AD there is fairly new. So obviously when new ADs come in, they want to give it a year or so, and then they're going to bring in their guy. But hey, the success of Mullins, his overall record may not be super spotlighted, but I mean, they finished third last year. They were one game out of getting the bye this year, so pick up a Valley win somewhere along the line, and their first game was yesterday. But I don't know. Mullins is a very good coach. He'll land on his feet. We'll see where he goes, and wish him all the best.
One thing it made me think about was you talked about standards and expectations, Brad, and how Coach Wardle has created a culture where the expectations are high, and he's continued to meet those expectations to the point that the university continues to retain him. And in today's college world where you either win or you get cut, I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're part of the program or not. When Mullins gets cut and he was on the team, played for the program, right? Lives, eats, and breathes SIU basketball, and he's gone because the culture of winning is that, and the expectations become unrealistic sometimes. And so it makes me appreciate a guy like Wardle who's been here. He's on his 9th season, going to be coming up on his 10th if he stays. And that's really awesome, especially at a school that a lot of people in the national spotlight would see as like a jumping point to larger jobs. And for the culture to be able to be created here in Peoria, I think is awesome. And when you see a lot of this turmoil in other Valley schools, that's a great thing for Bradley, in my opinion.
Yeah, Bradley's in a really good position compared to other schools in the Valley in a lot of different ways, and the program's in a really healthy place. And I think that there's a lot of potential moving forward. Either way, I mean, it would be I think a lot of people would hate to see Wardle go whenever that day comes, but it would be the first time in a really, really long time that Bradley was hiring a coach because their former coach got hired away for a better job, that, got promoted basically. And that hasn't been the case for a really long time. And, if it comes to that at some point, obviously we'll talk about it. But I hope Ryan Wardle stays for a really long time and we just keep this thing rolling.
Yeah. Hey, Rick. So it's your time. You are the prognosticator here. You obviously get almost all of your picks right. And so there are 2 games left to pick. And I would love to know what your non-homer picks are for these games today.
Okay, the non-homer picks. First one's going to be tough, because Indiana State. But I gotta say, even yesterday, they played maybe a half. We talk about breaking down how many minutes of good basketball Bradley's been playing lately. 30. We need 35 to 38 minutes of good basketball today from Bradley. But Indiana State yesterday, it was a 3-point game at half. And then it took a little while for them to get kicked up, and then Mo State got a little playing me ball and out of the team concept, and you saw what happened. So I don't necessarily think that overall Indiana State has been playing super great, not like they had earlier in the year, but they're going to have to today against Northern Iowa, and because Northern Iowa's pretty deep as well, deeper than Indiana State. I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. I'm going to give it to UNI.
Oh, man.
Probably maybe by 5.
Okay. All right. And what
Okay.
about Bradley and Drake? I know this is tough to be a non-homer, but
Yeah.
your analytical mind, give us your analytical thoughts, and then just go BU all the way.
I felt differently even waking up this morning thinking about this game than I did the other 2. Where the other 2, I was uncertain, kind of knowing our past, knowing Drake. I think we can pull one out. I really do. But if we do, it's going to be very similar, maybe 5. And I think I'm going to go on a limb and do that as well. It's going to be UNI and Bradley in the championship game.
That would certainly be worth watching. You get some veteran coaches there. And I always think that veteran coaches matter a lot this time of year because, yes, Indiana State has the reigning coach of the year, but Ben Jacobson's been there a long time. He's seen pretty much everything, and it's difficult for him to get rattled. So I don't think that you're way off, but I hope that you're more right about the second pick than you are about the first pick because I don't really care who wins the first game as long as Bradley wins today. Because I want to be doing this again for the title game, and I want to have something to celebrate, damn it.
I got to say, honestly, I want Indiana State to win. Because
you were hesitant to say that last week. Last time you were like, I don't care.
No, after watching them closely, even yesterday, and knowing how we played them at their place, yeah, I want them to, and I want Northern Iowa to give them all they can handle, and Indiana State to pull it out. I'd much rather play Indiana State than Northern Iowa right now. But we'll take either. Hey, fear none. Play anywhere and fear none. So we'll take them all.
It is that time of year for that kind of stuff. Well, guys, game is in a couple of hours. I'm going to be away, so hopefully my luck of not watching and having the team do really, really well will translate today. Going to be celebrating a little man's birthday with some other folks. Ooh. So I will hopefully be able to tune in a little bit, but do you guys have any parting thoughts before we get everybody out of here so they can get their chores done and go watch the game?
Yeah, I don't know what this other game you guys were talking about is. As far as I know, there's only one game that matters today, and that's at 5:00 this evening. And I fully expect the Braves to come out and be ready to play. If for Drake to win this game, it's going to take everything they have because I think that you're going to see the best version of the Bradley Braves today. And we've talked a lot about that version of the Braves is really difficult to beat and would be really difficult to beat. And so all about the Braves today, of course, and whoever wins this other game you're talking about, they can take their beating tomorrow when the time comes.
All right. I love it. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you're not in St. Louis and you decided to tune in to us, we really appreciate that. And hopefully we will be able to celebrate a win tomorrow. If not, we will still be back after the result of this game because we have the off season to look forward to no matter what happens. But let's all be positive. Braves win today, and we get to break down, hopefully tomorrow, a championship game. But I want to thank everybody again. I hope this finds everybody well and safe. Have fun watching the game, whether you're in St. Louis, whether you're not in St. Louis. And we'll talk to you next time. From the OG, from the coach, and me, this is Braves Talk.